In the last video, we saw how the Mosaic Law of the Old Testament still very much applies to Christians, according to the words of Jesus himself. Of particular interest for believers, then, should be the many verses that describe the punishments for disobedience. The Hebrew God took his law quite seriously, as the following passages will indicate. Leviticus 24:15 says that if anyone curses his God, he will be held responsible. Anyone who blasphemes the name of the Lord must be put to death. In similar fashion, Deuteronomy 13:6 and 9 reads, "If your very own brother, or your son or daughter, or the wife you love, or your closest friend secretly entices you, saying, 'Let us go and worship other gods,' you must certainly put him to death." Most interesting of all is that the day God ordained as a simple day of rest and reflection carries a heavy punishment too. Observe the Sabbath because it is holy to you. Anyone who desecrates it must be put to death. To show that these laws were not interpreted symbolically, Numbers 15:32-36 tells the story of a man who was caught gathering wood on the Sabbath. You may be surprised to find out that God mercifully grants the man death as his penalty. Are we starting to see a pattern here? While Christians might jump to support a lot of the laws from the Ten Commandments, even though they aren't supposedly applicable, they often miss other commands like Deuteronomy 21:18-21, which instructs parents to take their disobedient children before the town gate, where all the men of the town will stone them. In Mark 7:9-13, Jesus even scolds the Pharisees for setting aside the commands of God by not killing their rebellious children. One can imagine why few Christians seem so vocal about these passages as they are about the passages dealing with homosexuals. You can also guess why ministers like Ted Haggard and Jimmy Swaggart didn't often preach Leviticus 20:10, which calls for adulterers and adulteresses to be put to death. When in doubt over the punishment for disobeying any rule in the Bible, or for being different in any way from a stereotypical worshiper of Yahweh, just go with death. 99% of the time you'll be right. God also orders death for homosexuals, priests' daughters who have had sex, false prophets, women who are discovered not to be virgins on their wedding night, fortune tellers, and witches, which of course led to the grisly stain on human history called the Burning Times. No wonder Paul called the Mosaic Law a ministry of death. The next time you hear a Christian denouncing gays, non-believers, fraudulent preachers, or psychics, ask them why they don't follow the rest of the Bible's teaching on those types and demanding they be killed. Jesus said himself, "Anyone who breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven."